If you're building or upgrading an AR-10 chambered in 308, the glass on top of that rifle is doing half the work. A great scope means confident hits at distance, quick target acquisition up close, and the kind of durability that survives real recoil, not just a bench test. I pulled 5 of the top rifle scopes made for the AR-10 platform and ranked them by how many actual buyers have put them to the test and left feedback. We're counting down from 5 to 1, so the scope with the most proven track record is saved for last. Starting the list at number 5 is the Vortex Viper HD, a 525 by 50 first focal plane scope built on a 30mm tube with the VMR4 reticle. This reticle was designed to help you dial in ranges, holdovers, windage corrections, and moving target leads, and the fine center crosshair subtensions strike a nice balance between precision aiming and staying visible in low light. Because it's a first focal plane design, those reticle subtensions stay accurate no matter what magnification you're sitting at, which matters a lot if you're shooting at different distances throughout the day and don't want to do mental math to compensate.
The build quality here is where Vortex tends to shine.
The HD optical system uses select glass elements to cut down on chromatic aberration and boost color fidelity. So what you're looking at through the glass stays sharp and true to life rather than washed out or fringed with color at the edges. The exterior lenses are protected by Vortex's Armortec coating, which resists scratches, and the whole unit is argon purged, meaning it's built to stay fog-proof and waterproof through genuinely rough weather. The elevation turret uses Vortex's RevStop Zero system, which lets you return to a true zero quickly, and it's paired with a capped windage turret, so you're less likely to bump your settings by accident while moving through brush or climbing into a stand. One hunter who mounted this scope on a Barrett rifle chambered in 4308 called it an outstanding optic straight out of the box. And that kind of pairing with a serious precision platform says a lot about the confidence people have in the glass and the tracking. The scope also comes backed by Vortex's unlimited, unconditional lifetime warranty, a fully transferable promise to repair or replace the scope if it's ever damaged or becomes defective, which adds real peace of mind for anyone planning to keep this rifle set up for years. Right now, this scope is sitting at the smallest number of buyer reviews on our list, which is really the only thing holding it back from ranking higher. The features and construction are all there, but it simply hasn't accumulated the volume of real-world feedback that the rest of these scopes have. That's about to change fast, though, because the next scope on our list brings a completely different aiming system to the table, one that doesn't rely on batteries at all, and it's already built a small but seriously loyal following among AR-10 owners. Number 4 is the Trijicon ACOG 3.5x35 in the amber crosshair .308 configuration, and this is where the list takes a sharp turn away from traditional variable power glass. The ACOG is a fixed 3.5x magnification optic that illuminates its reticle using a combination of fiber optics and tritium, which means there's no battery to charge, replace, or forget in a bag. The reticle brightness adjusts automatically based on available light, so it's just as usable at high noon as it is in the fading light of last shooting light. The amber crosshair reticle is specifically calibrated for bullet drop compensation out to 1,200 meters when running 12-308, giving you a genuinely useful ranging tool built right into the glass. The housing is forged from 7075 T6 aircraft aluminum, which is the same grade of aluminum used in a lot of aerospace and firearms applications because of how well it holds up under stress. That toughness is a big part of the ACOG's reputation. It's also designed to work with the Binden aiming concept, letting you shoot with both eyes open for genuinely fast target acquisition at closer ranges, something variable magnification scopes generally can't replicate. Buyers who've mounted this scope report clear, bright glass and a straightforward sighting in process. One reviewer put it on a Springfield M1A and ran into an eye relief quirk that's specific to that rifle's stock geometry, rather than a flaw in the scope itself. And he noted he was still very happy with the green reticle option and the ranging capability once he got used to it. Another buyer who's owned several rifle scopes at different price points made a point of saying the ACOG isn't really comparable to cheaper optics, citing the ruggedness and the quality of the build, though he mentioned his particular tritium illumination felt a touch dimmer than expected and recommended, buying only from authorized dealers, since counterfeit ACOGs are unfortunately common in the used market. This amber crosshair model edges out our number 5 pick because it brings genuine battle-tested pedigree and a reticle built specifically for .308 ballistics, something the previous scope's more general-purpose reticle doesn't offer. But it's still a smaller sample size of reviews compared to what's coming next, where we jump into a green-illuminated version of this same optic that's earned nearly 3 times the feedback, and a small army of AR platform owners singing its praises. Number 3 is the green illumination chevron-free 08 version of the Trijicon ACOG, and it shares the same battle-proven DNA as our number 4 pick, first trusted by the U.S. Navy SEALs back in 1991. What separates this one and pushes it ahead is simply the depth of feedback from AR-10 and 308 platform owners specifically, along with a wider range of real hunting and shooting use cases described in the reviews. Multiple buyers mounted this exact scope on scar pattern rifles chambered in 308 and reported dead-on accuracy, describing the chevron reticle and ranging stadia as simple and intuitive once you spend a little time with them. One reviewer who paired it with a precision rifle setup for backup close-range work called the optic amazing and specifically praised how long the tritium illumination is rated to last over a decade without ever needing a battery swap. Another hunter mounted it on an FAL rifle and described it as essentially bomb-proof, noting that out of the box it printed low and slightly off-center, but after roughly 40 rounds of adjustment, he was ringing steel confidently out to 200 yards. Several other reviewers focused on the no-battery convenience as the single biggest selling point over red dot sights with magnifiers, since there's nothing to charge or replace before a hunt. And the ACOG's fiber optic and tritium combination just works whenever you pick the rifle up. One buyer specifically chose this scope over a more expensive backup option for exactly that reason. A few reviewers did note that the ranging reticles calibration assumes an average size target and shoulder width, which makes it slightly less precise for hunting applications compared to man-sized ranging on a square range, though it still performed well for their needs. One buyer's shipment arrived with a damaged case, and Amazon's customer service handled the replacement quickly, which he appreciated. This scope beats our number 4 pick on sheer weight of hunting and shooting feedback. Plus, it shows up mounted on a wider variety of AR-10 and .308 platforms in the reviews, giving future buyers more confidence it'll work on their specific build. But we're still in fixed magnification territory here. The next scope on our list brings variable zoom back into the picture, along with a locking turret system and a massive 56mm subjective lens that multiple long-range shooters say punches well above its price class. Number 2 is the Bushnell Match Pro, a 530 by 56 first focal plane scope with the illuminated deployment 2 reticle, and this is where the list shifts firmly into precision long-range territory. The 34mm main tube is wider than the 30mm tubes found on most of the scopes ahead of it on this list, which translates to a generous 29 to 30 MRAD of elevation travel. More than enough to hold zero across the extended range of .308 is capable of reaching. The turrets are locking, which prevents accidental adjustments in the field, and the easy set zero stop lets you dial back to your true zero without hunting for it. The whole unit is rated IPX7 waterproof and finished with Bushnell's exo-barrier coating, which sheds rain, snow, and dust off the lens surface to keep your sight picture clear when conditions turn ugly. The reviews here paint a genuinely compelling value picture. One buyer who's owned multiple Vortex Viper Gen 2 scopes at a notably higher price point switched things up and came away impressed, specifically calling out that the locking turrets and crisp audible adjustment clicks outperformed what he was used to, and that the wider 34mm tube let in noticeably more light than his 30mm Vortex glass. Another shooter said the scope performs well above what you'd expect for the price and reported easy headshots on 200-yard targets, thanks to the bright illumination. A third buyer specifically compared it against a Night Force he owns and admitted that Bushnell falls a bit short there, but said the price difference makes that gap easy to accept, especially since it still gets the job done for serious long-range shooting. Not every review was glowing. One buyer running this scope on a .50 BMG rifle had a rough experience with the eye relief shifting as he adjusted magnification, forcing him to constantly reacquire his sight picture, and a couple of reviewers noted the image gets slightly softer past 25x magnification. A couple of buyers also mentioned the battery compartment cover is awkward to remove. Even with that mixed feedback, the Bushnell Match Pro edges ahead of the ACOG models on this list by offering true variable magnification, a wider elevation and windage travel range for stretching a .308 out to serious distance, and locking turrets that several buyers said outperform pricier competitors. But there's one scope left, and it's not just ahead on review count. It's nearly double every other scope on this list combined, with a reticle purpose-built for exactly this kind of long-range precision work. Number 1, and by a wide margin in terms of buyer feedback, is the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2 in the 525 by 50 configuration with the EBR-7C MRAD reticle. This is a first focal plane scope built around laser-etched turrets, adjustable parallax, and Vortex's RZR0 stop system, all wrapped in a single-piece aircraft-grade aluminum housing that's shockproof, waterproof, and fogproof, thanks to O-ring sealing and argon purging. The EBR-7C MRAD reticle was designed specifically to help you determine range, dial holdovers, and correct for wind and target movement, with fine center crosshair subtensions that stay precise for aiming while remaining visible when the light starts to fade. A fiber optic rotation indicator on the elevation turret means you can glance down and instantly know how many rotations you've dialed without needing to stop and think about it. The reviews here tell a remarkably consistent story of shooters choosing this scope over more expensive alternatives and not looking back. One buyer said he was cross-shopping this exact model against a Night Force and picked the Vortex specifically because it's first focal plane and considerably cheaper. And he came away happy with the decision, praising the solid adjustment clicks and clear glass. Another reviewer said he was blown away by the quality within a week of mounting it, highlighting how little clicking he needs for long-range corrections thanks to the reticle design, and specifically calling out the off-to-tent illumination feature that lets him return to zero brightness with a single click rather than cycling through every setting. A third shooter paired this scope with a precision rifle build and reported shooting sub-MOA groups with ease, saying he genuinely prefers Vortex glass over optics that cost significantly more. The hunting feedback is just as strong. One buyer described dialing out to 1,000 yards and successfully harvesting game at over 600 yards, calling it his first experience with a first focal plane scope and saying he's completely sold on the format going forward. Another hunter mounted it on a precision rifle chambered in a long-range cartridge and reported zero issues whatsoever straight out of the box. A few reviewers did mention minor nitpicks, like wishing flip-up lens caps came standard and wanting a way to lock the diopter ring in place, with a couple of buyers using a small mark or a strip of tape as a simple workaround to track their setting. With the highest review count on this entire list by a wide margin and consistently high marks from hunters and precision shooters alike, the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2 earns the top spot. It combines the long-range capability and glass clarity that pushed our number 2 pick up the list, adds a reticle purpose-built for ranging and wind correction, and backs it all up with more proven, real-world use than every other scope on this list combined. That wraps up our countdown of the 5 best rifle scopes for your AR-10 and 308 this year. If you're chasing pure long-range performance and want the reticle with the most versatility, the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2 at number 1 is the one to beat. If you'd rather run something that never needs a battery, the Trijicon ACOG options at 3 and 4 are proven, combat-tested choices that just work.